Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the 1980 cult horror classic film Friday the 13th. So this was filmed in Bruntsfield, New Jersey, I believe is the name of it. They use the police department, they use the fire department, the camp that Camp Crystal Lake is a part of is in this particular town in New Jersey, if I'm gathering all my facts correct from the end credits. So this came out in 1980, right? I don't remember the exact date. Oh, I have a list of 20 films of Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street to review. 20 films. It's all the way over there. Come Friday the 13th Part 2, I will make sure to read off the exact theatrical release date of Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2. So, I've never seen the actual theatrical version of this movie. I've only seen the uncut version. I've owned the uncut version my entire life. And, well, you know what? That might be a lie. I might have seen the original, theatrical version on TV at some point. Maybe on MTV. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. The one I recently just saw was the uncut version. Each Friday the 13th is basically an hour and a half long. So we start out in 1958. Two campers are starting to make out and starting to fool around at Camp Crystal Lake, and first person perspective shot of this villain comes up and then murders them. So years go by, we're now at present day, Friday the 13th. Present day is in 1980 when this film came out, Friday the 13th. And the camp is about to be reopened again, and so we find out that a boy had died the year before. He drowned at Camp Crystal Lake in 1957. Then those two kids were murdered in 1958. So they just shut the camp down. Flash forward, what, 22 years? Right? Yeah, to get to 1980, Friday the 13th, 1980. And so there's counselors there trying to get the place all set up because camp's going to open up in 2 weeks for actual campers. So there's a guy, Mr. Christie, who's opening the camp, all these different counselors, and there's first girl that we see, Annie. She's trying to get to camp, which is 20 miles away from the nearest town. So she's being driven, and then one guy drops her off halfway, and she hitchhikes the next half, and then she gets murdered. So it's like, who is this person murdering all these people, and why? So one after the other is just killed. But we do get a Kevin Bacon sex scene. We get his butt. He gets then stabbed through the neck. Very, very gory of a movie. Now we had Halloween before this, and we had Texas Chainsaw Massacre before that. So this kind of campy horror was well known at this point. So this was just another iteration of a well-known kind of style of campy horror. But what's interesting about this film is that it's very beautiful. It's very cinematic. You have a lot of panning shots of the lake and nature. One shot is literally of a beaver in the water. For what purpose? Just to show of how serene and calm and peaceful of a place this is supposed to be, but then it's nicknamed Camp Blood because of all the deaths and all the murders. So as the story progresses and all the violent murders happen, we have Alice is our final girl. The blonde girl is our final girl. She thinks at the very end that a zombie boy, Jason, dragged her under the water, and then that's how the police found her. But we know that Jason is still under there because of the 10 sequels that followed. But in 1980, I don't think it was really planned when the movie was being made to make 10 sequels. It just shows the power of franchise. So it's revealed that Alice is the last one surviving, and Mrs. Voorhees comes to save the day, and she said, "Oh, I was a cook back in the day, and Mr. Christie should have never reopened this place. It's cursed." And she reveals that her son, Jason Voorhees, is the one that drowned in 1957 when the two lifeguards were off, having sex and hooking up. He should have been watched. He's a special boy. He requires a lot of attention. We know he's a deformed individual, and he had problems, and that's why he needed all the special looking after within the lake. So he does not drown, but he drowned and he died. So Mrs. Voorhees now has the voice of Jason coming out of her as well, in a very split personality aspect of kill her, mommy, kill her. Super creepy. and the that sound throughout the entire film, creepy. So you have Mrs. Voorhees in her infamous sweater, and she's trying to kill Alice. She kills all the other teenagers as well. And then it's Alice with a machete that Mrs. Voorhees originally had, and Alice takes the machete and chops off Mrs. Voorhees' head, and the head spins off, and her arms are going up like this. It's just so cool watching this, how they did this with practical effects, you know, what, 30, 40 years later? So cool. Yeah, I absolutely love it. So then, like, it's very, like, is Jason in the water at the end? Is he not in the water at the end? You know, what's going on with Alice? All of these things. Friday the 13th is interesting because some ends of the stories cooperate with the beginnings of the next story. Not all the time, but if memory serves me, I believe the beginning of Friday the 13th Part 2 is about Alice. I have to watch them all. I need to get all of my facts straight. I need to get everything together. But yeah, so we start out in 1957 because of Jason drowning. 1958 is when counselors were murdered, and then in 1980 is when more counselors were murdered, and Mrs. Voorhees was beheaded. And that's important, again, moving forward. Even in the remake of Friday the 13th, Mrs. Voorhees being beheaded with a machete is extremely important, especially because Jason is well renowned for having a machete and a hockey mask, but Jason's not the villain of Friday the 13th Part 1. Mrs. Voorhees is the villain of Friday the 13th Part 1. She thinks she's Jason in the killing them aspects, but she's not. She is Mrs. Voorhees wielding a machete and various other instruments. The other benefit of watching these movies is knowing that the villains, Mrs. Voorhees and Jason Voorhees, do not utilize just singularly a machete. In pop culture, in props, in memorabilia, in toys, you see Jason with a machete, but in movies moving forward, there's axes, there's arrows, there's literally anything he can find, he'd kill someone with. And same thing with Mrs. Voorhees. There was a fire poker at one point, there was half of an oar, there was things, and then a machete, and a knife, things. Very important franchise within the horror realm, and then without this film, we would never have the Battle of Freddy vs. Jason moving into 2003, which we did actually talk about. So we only have 19 films to discuss moving forward, plus the Nightmare on Elm Street episode of the Goldbergs. We're going to talk about that because it's perfect, because Robert Englund is back as Freddy Krueger. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, on to the next review. Mucho mahalo.